Okay. I guess I am live. I had to take Facebook off. I always try with them. They never let me through. Rejected by Facebook. Wah, wah. So, hi everyone. I'm gonna talk about a couple things. Hi everyone joining me, starting to come in. I haven't talked about MTHFR mutation and histamine intolerance and that sort of stuff before, so I'd like to do that today. A little bit of housekeeping, of course. Hey, Rose. It's hot, so I'm sleek today. I'm sleeking it back. Whew, it's a hot one today. Got the AC going. And I hope everyone's gardens are growing nicely. I just did a little video on my garden. And I'm like a rabbit now because I have so much lettuce to eat. And if you were all here, I would share it with you. That's how much I have. I am on TikTok, believe it or not. So I do little TikToks. It's Yum Naturals on TikTok. I just put out a newsletter. And if you're not subscribed to my newsletter, then I suggest you head over to yumnaturals.store and sign up for that. Or you can sign up to my my yummy.doctor newsletter. You can go over there, yummy.doctor, and sign up for that one. And I've got lots in the works. It's pretty wild times. And I just had a birthday, so that I'm now 47 officially. It was a good one. And yeah, I miss you guys. I want to do a live. I'm booked off for August for all of my interview circuit, so I can do this stuff because you guys need this information. And then it starts again in September with like 2 or 3 interviews a week. And I just did an interview with Sol Luckman. I have to edit, and that one will be released. I just did one with Andy Kaufman, which is around. I haven't put it on my BitChute channel yet. Should be on yummy.doctor. I haven't checked in a while, but my videos get uploaded there. What else was I going to touch on? Oh, okay. So I am hiring. I need to hire 2 shipping staff and a maker, someone who makes some of the less complicated products. And I need... Yeah, there's a lot of changes going on, which is wonderful. I'm really excited for that. Because, what's happened is we're so backlogged all the time, and we're trying to fix that. And so be patient with us as you do your orders. First of all, we have shipping challenges because of all the ridiculousness and customs being real weird, and even Homeland Security getting involved in stuff sometimes. They're creepy. Just leave us alone. We're not hurting anybody. So just be aware that, we're trying to catch up on orders, and we're going to get there because we're going to hire more staff, and then we're going to be able to pump them out better. So we're working on all those things because, small businesses have growing pains all the time, and we're planning on surviving this Great Reset, destruction of small business thing, and we're going to get out from under this insanity and rise up and get, I'm running it like a PMA for Canadians, so I also wanted to talk about that. So if you are Canadian and you want to order, you just have to send an email to contact us at yumnaturals.ca, and we will give you the PMA, the private member agreement, so that you can order in Canada. And that's how we get around corruption. We go private, right? Hi, everyone. And so that's kind of where we're at. And I really need a lot of just care and support surrounding me right now with all the big changes going on, which I don't really want to talk about until they are really, secure, but no cool stuff is happening. Okay. And so I can really use, any last bit of support. The healer is making her moves. So it's exciting. It's scary as all get out, but it's good. And another thing I just want to touch on. if someone's watching this and they don't know me, or they don't know my background or history or who I am, or maybe go take a look at that. If I were not a healer, if I weren't trained and I didn't have what I have, I'd probably be a stand-up comic, okay? I like jokes. I don't mind swear words. I'm trying to clean it up so it's more, PG. But that's who I am. Authentically, I'm going to be who I am. And if your instinct is to start throwing shade and criticizing and judging, then I invite you to reflect inward and ask yourself why you're projecting, and what it is inside of you that hurts so bad that all of these things bother you. Okay. And if you don't like my content or how I present it, then it's not for you, and that's okay. I'm okay with it. So you be okay with it. If you think that my humor is dumb, or you don't resonate with it, or you expect just because I have a doctorate, I'm supposed to put a bow tie on and talk like a dink, that's your opinion, but take it elsewhere. Okay. I don't think that's the place for you if that's your mindset when you're listening to me. You know what I mean? I'm here to share. I'm here to teach. And I'm here to make light of this insane existential reality that we find ourselves in. Because if you don't laugh, what are you doing? I mean, how are you going to survive this place? You got to lighten it up, right? Okay. Just wanted to add that in for all the people who seem to think that that's important, or try to tell me that I should do it a certain way. I'm going to do it the way my inner guidance tells me to present. Now, a lot of people these days are having some weird, genetic problems, which we never had, by the way. We never had this type of like MTHFR, like what? I mean, these mutations and strange inabilities to detox, that's just not your common types of ailments. This is a modern day creation based, of course, on what's our primary cause of gene mutations, everybody? Come on. I know you know. It's something that they inject into you pretty early on in life, and repeatedly so, and ridiculously so, and tell you that it's to prevent something. And being that this is an inverted kind of reality, that's a 180 flip on that, and is not the truth, and is in fact the damage. So the chemicals, yes, that they inject and tell you have to have for your babies and children, those things, which we dare not name, because in this world, we're not allowed to actually speak honestly and truthfully. We're not allowed to question these chemicals and the people that push them, because if you do, you get cut off. So we'll be delicate about our words, but we know what we're talking about here, okay? Yes, the schmack sheems, those. Beautifully done, Rose. Thank you very much. Those damage all kinds of systems. Of course, the gut is the first thing that goes from them. Inflammatory response, white blood cell overkill, nervous system disruption by clotting mechanism problem, and stroke, mini stroke, which leads to an imbalanced face. Forrest Moretti talks about the crooked smile, if you want to read his work. Dr. Andrew Molden, of course, was the first to really say, hey, wait a second. These kids are stroking out in my pediatrician's office, in my office. Why? Every time I do the schmeans, they're stroking. So we know that these things are put into place for population control, for sterilization reasons, for damage and degeneration of our brilliance, to keep the thumb upon us so we do not overcome and take down the satanic elite that have been ruling this place since whatever the Great Reset, whenever that happened. All right, so that's where we're at now. And now we have to try to fix this and prevent it and get around it and deal with the damage that they've done to us. So we steer clear of their inventions, and we learn about the terrain, and we learn that our bodies are brilliant, know how to heal. And something I am working more toward as, the eclectic healer in me, because the eclecticism in me, where I gather tools from all sorts of modalities. One of the modalities now that I've been called toward is sound healing. And and not just that, but also to reset the nervous system through the shaking off of the trauma release. So with trauma release in sound therapy. And it's very powerful, and it's not to be underestimated. And I think that most of the problems we're seeing are related to old trauma and are related to emotional damage. Well, it's really a whole cacophony of causations. That's usually the pin that holds it all together, and that must be dealt with before it will heal properly. And you see this in a lot of cancers, for example, where people who are trying to deal with it naturally, as you should, are maybe do Gerson therapy, or maybe do another type of therapy like MMS, or they'll do even 714X, which I haven't talked about, which I've done because I wanted to actually use the product before I start talking about it. So I will do a video on 714X from Gaston Nascens in the Serbi Corporation. It's an interesting product. Anyway, these sorts of things or even mistletoe as an injection, let's just say, okay? So they'll use something natural to assist the body and do lots of detox, which you need to do, and juicing and so forth. But then it will come back. You see this again and again. And it's because the emotional component was not dealt with. The locked aspect, the stress aspect, is still holding. And that has to be dealt with, or you don't heal it fully. I mean, you can keep managing it, but you're not going to release the growth or flush that out and move on past the lesson if you don't do that, okay? Yeah, so yeah, 714X is an injectable and an inhalant that Gaston Nascens created, and he was the man, the French chemist and doctor who came up with the description of the somatid cycle. And he was, of course, persecuted because of that and created the somatoscope. And he was the one who came up with this derivative of camphor, which is like an essential oil, essentially. And the derivative of camphor liquefies the lymphatic system and helps the spleen deal with the toxic waste that's inside. Because your lymphatic system is like your garbage dump of the body. It's a waste removal system. And if that gets damaged, which it does by, the things, those invariably damage the lymphatic stream, and that can back up and lead to all kinds of problems, of course. So, all right, and so the MTHFR, and there's other mutations I've talked about, COMT, like COMT mutations and other sorts of mutations. Essentially what's going on there is there's a methylation problem. And if you understand methyl groups, which is the CH3, if you're looking at it from a chemistry or biochemistry standpoint, that has to tag wastes for removal, essentially. I'm going to simplify it, of course. It can be very complicated. You look at the biochemistry, there's a lot of wheels that turn. And if you're missing one of the key processes in one of the wheels turning, it's like, a clock where you have all different wheels, then the other clock wheels will not turn, and you get a toxic backlash. You get a load that cannot remove itself, including histamines and other, phenols and other groups in the body that, depending on the type of mutation and how it's displayed, you can't remove those wastes, and it can lead to all kinds of issues. Sorry, just reading the comments there. Yes, so all sorts of challenges to purge wastes. It also leads to substantial deficiencies, including B12 and folate. And then you can see certain symptoms based on those nutritional deficiencies, okay? And there's a simple way to really help that process move along. And then there's a lot of underlying healing that has to be done. Of course, the prevention is don't do the but it's not just from you doing it, you know, to your child, or that it also can be a generational problem, because say you got a lot of them and then you had a child and you decided, enough, I'm not going to poison my child. I'm educated, I read the studies, I know this is a scam. Then you still could have a child with that because of your damage from those shots. And the same goes down the lineage. And the more we do it, the more we're going to see this. And so the next generation that has more and more and more of them, and then the next generation, whatever's going to survive this, will, you know, can also have other kinds of genetic mutations. And even to the point where I've had a couple of cases where the children can't digest simple phenols from, say, fruit, or they're fructose intolerant, which is very odd. It's a very rare thing, ultimately, it should be, for you to not be able to digest like fruit. And we're seeing discussions about like lectins and all of these quote unquote anti-nutrients in the body, which they'll never were a problem before. You could eat nuts and seeds and these things. You'd never have that issue where you couldn't digest such a thing. We've degraded to that point where people are hypersensitive to stuff that normally no one would bat an eye at. This is a developed problem. This is not natural or normal. I don't usually go into anti-nutrients because I believe once you upregulate your digestive processes, then it's not an issue. And for the most part, you can soak nuts and seeds, and that's which I encourage anyway, and get rid of lectins, which is sort of like the seed coat that protects the seed from damage, because those things are actually meant to be planted in the ground and then sprouted, right? Or you could just simply sprout those things and not concern yourself about them and put them in the correct growth pattern that's more easily digested and assimilated by your body. Yes, there are a lot of allergies these days. There's all kinds of weird disease states, if you will, that are coming to the forefront. And it's funny, you know, how they do problem reaction solutions. So now they're saying, oh, well, we've made this problem with the genes, but now we're going to do all kinds of gene therapy. And now we're going to go down the robotic AI track, because now we want to, you know, screen you and make sure that we can, you know, repair that. And now we're going to have all kinds of weird nanotherapies and creepy stuff. And it, you know, that's how they do it. They create the damage in the first place, and they come in and as the fake hero and say, we have the solution, and guess what's going to cost you? And there's side effects, and it's going to drain you further, but whatever, because you'll believe anything because you're desperate, because you're sick. And this is where they get people conned. And it's a very clever marketing, you know, it's like a long standing marketing ploy, you know. And you get people emotionally desperate, and then they'll take whatever thing they think, and they'll just blindly follow the white coat. They have the white coat syndrome, and they'll just do whatever and then fall into a pit of doom when they do that, because they don't understand the elegance of the body, and they don't understand how it actually regulates itself and heals. So so let's talk a little bit about histamines, and then we'll talk about the methylfolate and the folate cycle a little bit. And what I suggest to do usually at the beginning to get that moving. And I have a really complicated protocol that I've had some of these cases, obviously, but I've had children, cases of children that have been some of the most difficult cases, but we've taken care of it nicely. So there's a lot of research I had to do. This was years and years ago, when I had some of my first cases of children who couldn't eat fruit and had all of these constipation challenges. And then, of course, you have a child that's upset when eating. And so there's other compliance issues. But we fixed the gut, and we reseeded everything. And then we got the genetics to come back. And again, in a child, you still have stem cells. There's still other resources that you can use to even heal the DNA, because it's not written in stone because of epigenetics. And if you study epigenetics, you know that the gene itself is not the brain of the cell. The membrane is the brain of the cell, and it dictates and forwards the information into the genetic code, and the genetic code then is responsive to the needs of the outer terrain. Okay, so it goes from top down rather than it dictating what's happening, right? Other than some internal processes in the body or in the cell itself, like say in the mitochondria, because mitochondria have their own DNA. That's a different story, but fundamentally it's the terrain or the environment that dictates what gene gets switched on or off. So that's the good news, because ultimately you can control that and you can affect that. And so I know a lot of people are saying things, can you talk about stuff? I'll see where I get to on that. And actually, regarding turpentine, Ramola wants to talk with Andy and I. We're going to do another interview session, and we're going to talk about DMSO and turpentine in that interview. So I'll probably save a lot of that for when we talk about it. Then very powerful plant tree medicine, actually both DMSO and turpentine or tree medicine. And, we'll get to it. Allergies, by the way, from the shot are because they put adjuvants and cellular particles, and also they're contaminated with all kinds of dust and mess. They're disgusting. It's like literally might as well just scrape it off the floor and put it in you. And when that gets into the bloodstream, the body goes, whoa, this should not be here. What is this? Because the body wants to know what self and not self is all the time, like especially past childhood. It's really got to sort that out. And it can't have that. It's considered inflammatory, and it's considered a problem. So what happens is a histamine cycle begins. And so histamine, there's 4, from what I learned. Now this is coming from my training, and we know that most of the stories could be wrong. So we have to be very careful now. But there's 4 cycles. There's 4 types of histamine responses, and 2 of them are delayed, and 2 of them are quite, on top of the matter. And histamine is coming from mast cells. There's a certain type of cell in the body that produces it, and it's actually effectively a hormone, and it is a chemical signaler, and it's saying, hey, buddy, you have a problem, and we need to take care of it, and we're gonna make it like an alarm sound and bring inflammatory molecules and blood and mediators to the area so we can get rid of the offender. And so say if you're allergic to shellfish, or you're allergic to, peanuts, people were allergic to peanuts back then. No, they were not. They're only allergic to these things because morons have injected you with these things. And that creates a problem in the body, because those are food particles that are meant to be ingested. Your gut solidly is supposed to work through that with all of its beautiful microbiome and process that properly, break it down appropriately, and then figure out what molecule goes where to service the rest of the body. It's not meant to go into your bloodstream. That's a shock. It's a trauma, actually. And the body's freaking when you do that. It's not ever supposed to be there. And so it tells the body, let's tag that. So we're going to tag it. We're going to say, no, this is garbage and dangerous. And if you now eat the food, right, especially if you have leaky gut on top of it, the body's feedback system is very tight. It says, you can't, sorry, honey, we've already identified that as bad. You shouldn't eat that. That's bad. So we're going to cause the same response. We're going to tag it as bad because we've already learned that that's bad. So we're going to let you know with feedback. And the nervous system does that very quickly. So, but you can heal that. You can heal all allergies. You don't need allergy shots. You don't need to suppress anything. There's ways in which you can actually incrementally increase your exposures and normalize whatever the food is that you're allergic to. But first of all, you have to do quite a bit of detoxification to make sure that the blood is clean, that you don't have any compounds floating around. That usually it involves slimming down, like if you're heavier, because a lot of it can be stored in the fat. And so through sweat, for example, it's very helpful. And then you can use things like homeopathy, urine therapy, which I will talk about because Kelly Brogan's asking me for my urine therapy video, and we'll get to it. There's a lot of reading. I'm trying to finish John Armstrong's book, and I'm doing my own looping. I'm doing all my own therapy, and I, you know me, I like to put it to practice before I really talk about it. You know, even if you read a book, that's fine. I, you know, can read the books and I can understand it, but I want to feel it, and for me, as that kind of didactic eclectic healer, it anchors it for me, and then I understand its value better, and I understand how I can help others in that way, if you understand that. Okay, histamine intolerance then is a whole part. It's actually related to MTHFR. I'm going to give you some articles and stuff. One of my favorite articles is from Dr. Ben Lynch. I don't know if you know him, but he wrote a book called Dirty Genes, and I do recommend. He's a naturopathic doctor, so he's got the same training as me, and he talks about, you know, this MTHFR problem and the susceptibility to the methylation deficiency, the genes involved and that sort of thing. So that information is digestible. I don't recommend really the genetic analysis at this point. I recommend just to look at symptoms that way, because I don't really trust a lot of these gene readers, you know, right now. Maybe in another world where there's peace and tolerance and knowledge and wisdom and intelligence, this day and age, there's a gene grab going on, and I wouldn't do it personally. I used to, now I wouldn't. So anyway, there's a COMT chapter, which I like in that book. So it talks about how high estrogen is related to histamine release. And a lot of people have xenoestrogen, high estrogen, unopposed estrogen problems, which is another whole issue that I've spoken about in a couple of videos, but I will do, again, more details on, especially once I start doing the courses and the classes, which will be on yummy.doctor. And I do suggest you register there. There's a link where you can actually make an account. So if you go to yummy.doctor, my account, that's a good thing to do now. Once the new website is launched, then you will get a notification, and we're going to move forward with a lot of, I'm going to switch gears a little bit more in that teaching and, you know, courses and resources, that sort of stuff. And for people asking, yes, at some point I will teach about how I make my creams and soaps and how I, you know, do the medicine and tincturing, and all that will come. All that will come. If you know the amount of work I do and all the different aspects, then you'll understand it takes time to prepare that. Okay, he talks also about the another, you know, aspect of this intolerance, and he tries to explain it really nice. So if you have a histamine issue, so histamine will help you digest food as well. It helps you move your bowels. It will help you have more energy so you can actually exercise, and it moves blood. Ultimately, it's a blood mobilizer. And so if your histamine levels are consistently high, what happens with anything that's consistently high or low, but let's just say from the high standpoint, the tolerance will go down because you have a negative feedback loop. So there's always feedback loops in the body, and the negative feedback loop will say, we have too much, stop making it. We have too much, so slow down the making it. So it keeps trying to tell the body to stop doing it. And it keeps almost just like insulin, right? There'll be a resistance that comes at the cells saying, like, hey, I know. It's like that used car salesman, or like the old style vacuum salesman at your door, like, hey, we don't need any vacuums, you know, go away, right? And it's the same idea with your body, where it's trying to say, hey, do you need some histamine, man? I got some histamine, man. Like, no, we don't need histamine, man. So it just gets recirculated and causes problems in areas that it shouldn't be in. Causative factors, obviously the genetic susceptibility. There's different genes, PMT, HNMT, DAO, MAO, so all these genetic problems. Nutritional deficiency. Now, he's a germ theory proponent, so you have to, I would just, you have to learn to really sift through a lot of that material and just say, okay, there's not really pathogens. Pathogens will create waste, and that can create a histamine response. So that could be a problem. But it's not a direct problem, it's an indirect problem of waste removal. So it's like when you can't remove waste, everything in your body that's making waste, like your own breakdown products, like your own bacterial milieu, which makes poo and pee, basically makes waste. You can't get rid of the waste that it's there to breaking down tissue, dead, dying, damaged tissue as it normally would. But if you can't get rid of the waste, then that becomes a problem. And that tells the body there's an inflammatory issue or there's something that shouldn't be there. And again, the histamine will get involved. Okay. So if you can understand why, then it's not just like, oh, there's bad pathogens and then I got to get rid of them. It's the rationale is understanding why that would be an issue in the first place. Nutritional deficiencies, obviously, different medications can cause histamine intolerance, antibiotics, of course, antacids. And if you use antihistamines, it can cause a histamine problem when you're using them long term, of course, because you're really confusing the histamine system now at that point. Hormonal insufficiency, even adrenal fatigue can cause it. Alcohol, even excessive exercise. A lot of people who are trying to get healthy might overdo it, and they can cause a histamine problem. Eating terrible foods, obviously, and the crazy thing is if you have a histamine problem, you can't handle good things. Like I was saying, like you can't even handle things like proteins or anything fermented, right? Anything with any type of extra microbial level. You can't, because again, you're inviting microbes, a microbial milieu, and you can't deal with the breakdown products. You can't digest them, you can't remove them. And of course, environmental challenges. We know about allergies like pollen and mold and mildew, dust mites, all that sort of stuff. And then if you have a leaky gut, you're going to have that back up as well. You're going to have that problem and your liver's not going to be working properly. Now, there's the main genes that are processing histamine. So you have a bunch of them. So they all require different vitamins. I'm not going to go into them in detail. You need different vitamins. You'll need B6 and copper for the DAO. You'll need MAO. You need B2 and iron. You could need B5 that creates CoA, which is for the NAT2 gene. So there's all these little, think of them as, and I've said this before, like pathways. And each pathway, or say you're trying to cross a river and there's stones and you have to jump from one stone to the next. Well, in between each stone, there's a helper that gets you from one stone to the next. And that's your nutritional mediator, like your B5, B6, B2. SAMe is another one. These cofactors. So think of a cofactor as an assistant that gets you from one stone to the next stone, crossing your river of your pathway. If you don't have that, then the pathway you can't cross, or it's really difficult to cross. And there has to be other workarounds that are done. Okay. He recommends 23andMe genetic tests. I do not. Now, histamine intolerance there's a lot of symptoms, and this is where it gets complicated, and this is why also doctors don't know anything, and they miss everything, and they're dumb and frustrating and hard to work with and arrogant. Anyway, my feelings. So you could get flushing. I see this all the time. Have you ever seen, especially males that are in their teens that maybe are a little bit heavy set? You'll see that sort of pattern on their face of a heat flush. That when I see that, I know they've been eating sugar and they're up drinking pop, and their sugars are a mess, and they're having histamine responses to food. So they have food intolerances, and you'll see that where they eat something and then they get a flush on the cheek, and it's a very specific pattern. So it's not the whole cheek. It's kind of like a bit of a rash, almost like this. You can see that even rosacea is a similar kind of response. There's a histamine problem in connection with that. They'll get rapid heartbeat. They might sweat. You can get a headache or migraine. The allergies we talked about, you get hives, the prickly heat, people who get mosquito bites and they swell right up, like Dean Brous, the associate of Dr. Stefan Lanka, We talk sometimes, and soon I'll be able to interview them, and I'm excited for that. Once he's done his experiments, I'll do that. And he got bit by a couple of mosquitoes, and he just welted right up. So he has a histamine sensitivity to get that bold of a bump. Basically, looks like somebody hit him on the head with a hammer. Runny nose or bleeding noses, those can be symptoms. Car sickness even can be part of their seasickness, or generalized motion sickness can be a histamine intolerance problem. Of course, itchy, irritable, nausea, vomiting, that sort of thing. Higher sex drive. Is higher sex drive a problem? I guess it could be for some. Asthma. Obviously, asthma has a histamine response to it, and usually it's delayed, which I think is stage 4 histamine response, which is then your chest tightness. Runny stools or running bowel, and all kinds of skin issues, of course, eczema, psoriasis, that sort of thing. Insomnia, that's sort of your display, where you're not sure what it is, why it is. So you might want to look at, detoxing your histamine and making sure your genes are functioning properly. And then, of course, you go to the doctors, and there's all different kinds of doctors. So say you have a chest pain, you're going to go to, you're going to go to a cardiologist, and they're going to see it as it's a lung problem. Or you have a skin problem, you go to a dermatologist, and they're going to see it as a skin, that's just it. There's your problem. Or you go to a psychiatrist because it's all in your head, or you go to a gastroenterologist because you've gut bloating or something, or you go to a gynecologist because you can't get pregnant, because it's all related because you have high estrogen, right? And they'll never figure it out. They'll just drug you with cortisone, antihistamines, SSRIs, calcium channel blockers, the hormones. They'll give you fiber to bulk you up. That's all they got. They don't know this stuff. So tune in, connect with your body, listen to your body, notice the foods that affect you, look at your lifestyle. Are you sleeping properly? Where's your mindset? What's your lifestyle like? What drugs are you taking? What supplements are you taking? That needs to be assessed properly. If you want to do labs, you can. Dr. Lynch talks about the labs you want to get. If you want any panels, or you want like a methylation profile, I think the blood work can be more on the safe side if you really are like that and you need something specific. See, my way of approaching it is I usually like to just listen to what the symptoms are, understand the interconnections and what the predominant thing is, and then chip away at it by adding in what makes sense that would be low, and see how the symptoms change. And if you are good at taking notes, then you can pay attention to yourself and go, hey, you know what? I upped my vitamin C, and vitamin C helps my mast cells and my white blood cells, and it helps my the histamine process faster. And ever since I started taking vitamin C, I feel better. And then you can play with it like that. Go, okay, so now knowing what Amanda said, maybe I should start taking B12, for example. I think I brought one. Like this one, active chewable B12. So a B12, which is a methyl B12, or a methylcobalamin. And that helped me. And now I feel better, and I don't feel as inflammatory, for example. Folate, which I have on yumnaturals.store. If you type it in, you'll see the different options I have for methylfolate. There's one from Biomed I really like that has both B12 and folate, both methyl versions in, and it's a chewable, and it's very palatable. It's like a cherry flavor or something. So you won't, you'll want to take it for compliance. That's for, hey, I started taking that. I feel better. My poops are more solid. I'm sleeping better. I'm not as irritable, that sort of thing. So if you can learn to tune into your body, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to understand what is working and why. What is this? So those pathways now are starting to work, and you're able to detox properly. Of course, I'm going to promote magnesium because, come on, peeps, we need magnesium. This is the one I make with DMSO. I don't know if you can see that. I make Zen, which is just the magnesium topical. This one's with DMSO, 50%. You're going to need magnesium. You're going to take it orally, which you're never going to get enough orally, but you could still take it orally, especially though if you have this issue, you're going to have runny stool, so you can't always handle high doses of vitamin C and magnesium. So I recommend that you at least saturate yourself through the skin with your magnesium, and that's going to assist your liver to catch up with a lot of the detox. It's at least you don't have that backlogged. And if you eat any food that causes bloating or gas or pain, do not eat that food. The other problem that can happen with the histamine intolerance, related or not to MTHFR mutation, is that you may not produce enough hydrochloric acid, or the hydrochloric acid relationship is off. So you're not digesting the food properly. You could have GERD and reflux and or just pain, and you don't know why, or undigested food in the stool. And it's funny because, well, funny, not funny, haha, funny, peculiar, that the medical establishment doesn't seem to see it like that. How they'll see it is that the acid's burning you or creating an ulcer, splashing back, so they want to get rid of it. So they put you on a PPI, which is a protein pump inhibitor, and they say, don't make the acid at all. Never digest again, anything, and then people start dropping weight. So if you want a weight loss plan and want to look sickly, go for it. But that's not the way. The way is to actually put the acid in. And when you do that, it actually closes the sphincters. You don't get splashback anymore because you make the proper bolus, and that bolus has a proper pH, and that has a whole, remember I said, everything has a feedback loop, feedback system. So that will progress everything forward so that the little bit of acid you're making won't splash back. And then your intrinsic factor, that's part of your stomach, will make and achieve the goals of absorbing B12. That's how there's specific cells inside the gut that actually are responsible for your B12 ingestion and assimilation. And if you have a chronic problem with your gut and you're not making enough acid, you're going to be B12 deficient. And I see this chronically, I mean, across the board in the elderly, the ones that have survived the genocide so far. They are chronically got the shakes. You see the elderly, they're doing this, right? They're shaking, a little like tiny tremor all the time, or their hands are always like a little bit like that. They're completely B12 just drained. And if I see that immediately, I start putting them on B12, usually with folate, because the other issue with B12 folate is I think it's folate deficiency can look like B12 deficiency. And anyway, one can mask the other. I forget which masks who. So just usually typically take both together. And I'll put them on that, and I'll tell them either to take diluted apple cider vinegar before each meal, or I'll put them on HCl plus. So I'll give them an actual HCl supplement. I don't know if you can see that. Sorry if I have gardening nails. Not too bad. This biotics research, you just take one before you're going to eat. Not longer than 15 minutes ideally, but yeah. Take one before you're going to eat, and then you're going to digest your food. Because that's where you get your nutrients from, if you didn't know. And those nutrients can get broken down, absorbed, and then again, the pH is going to be proper. It'll give the feedback loop to close that upper sphincter so you don't get splashback. Well, I should consider the lower sphincter. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying it's anatomically up here, not the lower one. Anyway, getting into semantics. So that esophageal sphincter will close. You will not get splashback. The ulcer can heal, and you will digest your food. And it's chronic. It's a huge problem. I see it all the time. I'll get cases where they're like, I had fermented foods and I don't feel right, or I can't eat nuts, or can't eat this food. And there's all these theories and all this, it's because of lectins, or it's because blah, 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 blah. No, it's because you're not making enough of the substance that actually can break it down. And also can be a gallbladder issue as well. So sometimes if you're eating fatty foods, you're not digesting, assimilating. It can be a combination factor, but you see that with gallbladder deficiencies, which again is the liver involvement, which is back to your magnesium issue, or bile salt creation problem, which again is nutritional deficiency feedback. So you're not getting enough nutrition to build your bile salts in the first place. And that can also lead to a lymphatic problem, because lymph is responsible for the chyle, which is not a dude. It's with a C, H. And the chyle is like a fat molecule, and it is part of the lymphatic system. So you can become problematically clogged in the lymphatic system because of the gallbladder, and they have a relationship. Do you see how brilliant this is? Do you see how everything is interconnected? So going to specialists is pretty much useless. I have almost daily conversations with people who tell me that they went to 5 different specialists, got nowhere, got handed the same drugs that their basically their family doctor would probably have given them, and they feel very frustrated and not helped, not assisted, you know. And of course, the egomaniacs that are most of these doctors, they don't ever want to be wrong because they have ego problems. So they'll come up with a story. They'll make stuff up, right? They'll say, "Oh, it must be in your head. You know, maybe we should send you to the head doctor." Yeah, because I can't find anything wrong with you, so there must be something going upstairs, right? That's how pathologically psycho they are. They'll make something up, or they'll say it's in your head because they can't figure it out. Instead of saying, "I really don't know. I'm very sorry. The medical schools just teach us about drugs. They don't teach us about nutrition, how the body works. We're just drug pushers and can't help you. You know, I can cut stuff out. If you want me to cut things away, we could do that and see if it works. Or we could like put a stent in it, or we could like put metal inside of you. Maybe that would work, you know, but that's all we got." Must suck to be that. Okay, so how about, that's just the top 3 things that I'll do for MTHFR in a child or adult, and there's different dosages for both, so make sure you know your dosages properly, is methyl B12, which sometimes actually hydroxy or the other B12s can work, but usually I start with methyl B12 and methylfolate, and something called trimethylglycine or dimethylglycine, but I usually go for the trimethylglycine. And this is what it looks like. This is the one I have in my store. TMG powder, Biotics Research. If you suspect that you have this mutation, this is a good litmus test. Those 3 together, you start taking them and your symptoms relieve, you know that that's what it is. So instead of going for the testing to see if you have it, you can do it the other way, where you assume you have it. Let's put in the things that fix it, and let's see if the results are there. And then you should know by default that that was a problem. And that's a methyl group. You're basically handing off into the body methyl groups that will do the tagging and assist the folate cycle moving. Remember I said at the beginning, like little cogs in a wheel, starting the whole cycle and moving things along. And then if you've got that magnesium with you, you should eliminate properly, sleep better, histamine intolerance should start to go down, all of that should start to heal. And that's step 1. Step 2 is some deep detox, using things like DMSO or MSM sulfur, this here, Happy Body, to actually repair some of the DNA strands, to actually increase the antioxidant level in the body, to do tissue repair, to increase apoptosis, to get rid of damaged cells, remake cells, all that sort of thing. And on yummy.doctor, I have a blog article that talks about graphene, by the way, and that N-acetylcysteine, which is this, which, oh, that's French. There you go. Okay. It's on my website. I have another one, but it's sold out. I'll refresh it whenever they get it back in stock. That's from Biotics. The other one, that one's from New Roots. And you can use NAC, you can use glutathione, you can use DMSO, you can use MSM. So any sulfur-based involvement, right, can help assist the creation, and in coffee enemas, by the way, can increase your whole glutathione levels, and that antioxidant can run around the blood and sequester all of these histamines and waste particles that the histamines are responding to, and move this show along so you're not suffering, right? It's all about, can you clean this up? You know, can you clean the body up? And I'll tell you, from the damage that was done to me by these whatever white coat freakazoids, has taken me 47 years to really get a handle on. I mean, I'm so happy that my daughter will never have to go through any of this crap. Honestly, she's untouched by these maniacs, and She will not have this. She will not have these challenges. She'll have other challenges in life because of what they're doing now, but not those, at least. She'll be able to have a free thinking mind. She'll be able to have a gut that digests. She will not have lymphatic problems. She will not have chronic strep infections. She will not have tonsils ripped out and all this kind of insanity and ear, tubes and stupid, archaic, dumb things that should have been thrown out long ago. Tubes in the ears, are you an idiot? Taking out adenoids, are you a moron? Yeah, that's what morons do. Morons rip out essential parts of the body and miss the simple elegance of nutrition. It's boggling to me to witness it to this day. Still, actually, it's getting worse. And we're going at what? Segregation's coming around again? Wow. Okay, didn't learn a thing, did we? Okay. I'm not interested in that reality. And really, we're moving forward without them, because the path that those people who are under the deep hypnosis and the mind control are going is to death. That's the way, that's their path, is goodbye. Goodbye town is where they're headed. And we are not. And so concern yourself with your own education, knowledge, learn the medicine around you, and I will help as much as I can to teach you that, and how to forage, what the medicine is, how to utilize it properly, food security, growing food, understanding food, fasting, how to fast, what's dry fasting, what's water fasting, what's urine fasting, which I will get to, right? All of these things. This is going to be your way. Folk medicines is going to make the biggest resurgence ever, which I'm excited about, because that's my whole gig. I love folk medicine. I mean, this is the way our ancestors did it. Actually, our real ancestors probably never hardly got sick at all, because they knew about sound therapy, and they knew how to have emotional balance, and they knew about energy fields, and they knew about vibration frequency of our bodies. So they knew that we are electrical. We don't shit. We poison our electrical. We have these devices that cause DNA damage. So, I was talking about the injections causing MTHFR. We've got devices in our own houses that cause that. So we have wireless, we have smart meters, and they want more of it. It's so awesome. Just keep it going. Just ramp it up and see how much this place can take until a total collapse. I mean, that's how maniacs are running this. And the people that actually blindly trust these establishments are equally as maniacal, because they have no idea or understanding that if these individuals or whatever institutions, Rothschild legacy, are continuing to promote any of these things, then they're insane. And they do not have your interest in mind, and they have no concept of the body, its elegance, proper health, proper history, none of that stuff. And we know, so we'll have those conversations. The rest of the people can go off into their delusions and where they're, have their little soap opera story that they're into, whatever it is. It's really not our business. If they want to stay asleep and in illusion, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. Just stay away from the people who are waking up and who want real health and well-being and peace and prosperity and all the good things, right? And don't want to succumb into a control system. I mean, please give me a break. Okay, we want to talk the other problem. Okay, so those are the three that I start with for MTHFR, and we talked about the symptoms. Histamine, quercetin. Okay, if you have allergies, and so you have a histamine problem, I usually start with quercetin. I didn't bring it out, but I have a New Roots one on my website, and vitamin C. And I also encourage you, on my Telegram channel, Healthy Dose of Truth, I just gave away one of my protocols that I normally will do for paying clients. I gave it away, and it is a vitamin C flush protocol. So you can go grab it. I put it as a PDF. You can download it for free on my Telegram channel. Okay, Healthy Dose of Truth. That's the channel that my main channel, which is my name, goes into, so feeds into. Okay, that is a super, super high dose buffered vitamin C protocol that will flush all that histamine right out of the body. It's massive, and you got to stay around the house. And it's a protocol. It's something you need to read and understand what you're doing, but it can heal some allergies. I've had clients where I have assisted them, through the process, and they are allergy free after using it. And these are people who would get hives. These are people who are tiptoeing around situations because they're worried, they can't go out to certain places, or they have to keep dust levels at an all-time low, or, whatever, to not break out. So you can heal that by flushing all those waste products out of your body using the vitamin C flush protocol. So that's a gift that I give you that you can go and grab in my Telegram channel. Okay. The other issue, I showed you that stuff. Okay. The other concern, of course, is if your body is unable to grab waste and remove them from the body and properly, even tag those things, and they're continually circulating, causing histamine problems and inflammatory issues. What's going to happen when metals are, there's nanometals, there's metals in the injections, they're doing spraying programs, which we know, we've studied what's in them, and it's barium and aluminum and all kinds of waste metals, this sort of thing. And in our food, in pesticide residues, gets in. And now you can't get metals out. And metals also can cause a feedback problem where it's using up a lot of key nutrients, and it's settling into fat tissues and these sorts of things. And other tissues, a lot of arthritis is simply just toxicity. I wrote an article, and I think I even have a video that just talks about arthritis as toxicity. Simply, if you have arthritis, you got to detox. That's it. You need magnesium, you got to detox. That's where you start. And stop drinking the well water, by the way. A lot of people get arthritis if their well water is not good. Not to say that the institutions that tested your well water, they'll say it's good. But if you have hard inorganic compounds in your well water from sitting in rock, you know what? I think back when we used to be able to digest that, I think it's all about the gut. I think if you have good fermentation, if you have the right bacterial, milieu, then you will digest actually even the inorganic. But mostly people don't. Because why? Because the gut's destroyed, right? They've already been on courses of antibiotics. That doesn't just come back on its own. They've wiped out colonies. You have to replenish. You have to assist the terrain. You have to fix the pH, right? And before it will repair. And then, you could probably drink the well water. But Dr. Bragg of that apple cider vinegar fame, Dr. Bragg, wrote a book about arthritis, and that hard water causes it. And that because he was seeing invariably people, especially elders, drinking well water and getting arthritis from it. And they're like, what the heck? And they were dehydrated as well from it. It wasn't hydrating them. So I see it. And when I always ask, if I see arthritis, I ask them about the water they're drinking and and then fix their guts. And they should be able to get away with that water. But okay, so heavy metals, okay, accumulating. Think about what I said earlier about the body as an electrical being. It has, you're crossing the stream and you're hopping from rock to rock, and you have that's a path, that's a pathway, and it's electrochemical. The biochemistry is electrical. It has electrical circuitry to it. Yeah, that's why things happen so quickly, because it's almost instantaneously, a lot of the communication. Now you throw in metals. What do metals do in an electrical situation, right? They'll either be like a quasi magnetic aspect, which will throw off the electrical. For example, aluminum. Aluminum can go either way. If you look at the chemistry of aluminum, it can act as a mild magnetic. It's not a strong magnet. But it can throw off your electrons, the transfers, right? So that would be a problem, don't you think? And aluminum is light. It floats, it lifts, it goes up, right? So you get it in the body, you're eating it, whatever. It'll eventually find its way up and into the brain. That's why we find it in, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and stuff. Well, with a lot of the MS and that tends to be mercury, which is heavy and tends to descend and settle into pockets. So it'll settle into the gut, into the pocket, settle into the joints in the pockets, settle into the feet, into the ankles. The heavier, the leads, the heavy will settle down, right? We have to get out of the body, dudes. And as I was alluding to, it is incredible to me that still now, in all these years, I'm still detoxing a lot of this stuff from my past. It has been quite a journey. And can you imagine now you've got all these people ignorant to their bodies, trusting these doctors and morons, poisoning themselves, eating wrong, poisoning, stress, EMFs, brainwashing. You got a lump of a human, okay? And now you got to detox them. Now they want to heal. Now they want what? The easy way out. So no wonder they fall into the trap of suppressive medicines. They're going to continually have to suppress until they're dead unless they do the work, right? And the work can be hefty, depending, right? we accumulate, we really do, and we hold. So we have to release it. And that's why, I did a video on expression versus suppression, so that you understand that expression is the healing, coming out is the healing, and holding and tight, that is not flow. That's not how we're built. That's not what we do. That's not how we heal at all. I have this, I really like New Roots. I've got them in more recently. Heavy metal detox. So this will increase your glutathione as well, which will help with not just heavy metals and nanometals and that sort of thing, but also will assist with the removal of any kind of waste, because that brings like glutathione, right? So like the NAC. So this particular one has NAC in it, vitamin C, and alpha lipoic acid. Alpha lipoic acid is another one that helps move that pathway, that detox pathway along, okay? And there's triads and compounds that have a synergy together that assists that process, and that's one of them. That's one of the triads, the N-acetylcysteine, the vitamin C, and the alpha lipoic acid, all right? That's a good one to work with. So that will help grab and sequester things using the glutathione system, and will help get rid of graphene as well, because that's the glutathione system, okay? Which all ties into everything we're seeing. And isn't that crazy that now with this whatever injection they're doing, which is graphene, has nothing to do with the fake virus, they are, trying to put this mesh inside of people and allow and convince the DNA to accept it, essentially. That's the trickery of why they're farting around with the RNA and DNA, depending on which it is. See what will take it and what will hold it and what will allow the mesh to continue to be present in the body, to sort of like accept it as its own, so they can make these whatever. It's again, the whole concept is demented. And in a sense, I kind of understand why people would have a hard time believing that that's what they're trying to do. If you go read their documents, like if you go read Operation Lockstep, if you go read the World Economic Forum, they're very open about it, what they're trying to do. This is what they want. They're pushing the AI agenda. So they're trying to make you more metal, more robotic, essentially. It's easier to control that way, right? So I wanted to check your questions quickly. I want to see if I addressed everything I wanted to say about this particular thing. Oh, yes, one last thing I wanted to say about it. Okay. Prevention. So if you're going to have a child in this day and age, you must detox first, ahead of time, at least a year. So if you want to have a child, a year beforehand, detox, fix your hormones, balance everything out, get rid of metals. Use plenty of DMSO, because one of the claim to fames of DMSO, you can read in my book, Healing with DMSO, is that it protects from radiation damage. Now, will it heal it? Mixed results, depending. But it prevents it. It prevents DNA breakages from radiation exposure. And that's any kind of radiation. So it's either from your boxes in the house, to you going for scans, which I don't recommend unless you're really desperate. You know, that sort of thing. You can protect yourself from that. And it protects all these clotting problems. Terrible thing happened. This beautiful woman who, Guru Jagat, she died recently. She was a beautiful spiritual woman. Many may know who she is. And she broke her ankle. Okay. So first mistake that people make, okay, when they hurt themselves, and I understand completely, you break your ankle, you're going to go to the hospital. I mean, this is how we're trained to respond, right? That's what emergency medicine is supposed to be there for us, right? I get it. I'm not saying that's not normal for this day and age, the thinking. However, if it happened to me, that would not be where I would go. I would not go to the hospital. I would assess the bones. I would deal with the pain. I would get some pain suppressants. You'll have to do that. Obviously, it's a lot of pain. You have to deal with that. I would put DMSO on immediately. I would put magnesium on immediately. And I would use whatever pain suppressant I needed to get by. I would assess the bones as best as I could. And I would begin to wrap the foot and ideally find someone who knows how to set bones properly. That's what should be happening. Doctors should be properly setting bones. I don't care if it's shattered. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the bones are shattered. It doesn't matter how splintered they are. If you reset the main bones and you properly wrap the in this case, say the foot or the ankle, and you give tissue salts, DMSO, magnesium, vitamin C, fast the body. You can do urine compresses. You can do herbal compresses. The body, you can use comfrey. Comfrey is called knit bone. The body will dissolve the bits that are not usable. It will dissolve them and it will rebuild the bone. It's meant to do it. You don't need metal. You don't need surgery. And this is a mistake, big mistake. And this is what's happened to our medicine. They automatically now your surgery. I remember when this started to happen. I've spoken about this a little bit before. I was like, what's going on? Why does everyone need surgery all of a sudden for a broken bone? You cast it, you set it, you cast it, and you work on the healing of it, and it will fix it. You know, for the most part. I mean, you might have, if it's not set properly, it might be off a little, and that's a concern. You know, or there might be some nerve problems that take more like time to heal or whatnot. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And this has become norm. This has become the norm. So Guru went in and she had broken her ankle. She went in for surgery. She threw a blood clot and died from it. And this happens because they put them on, they don't even tell you what they're putting in your body, right? All kinds of drugs are being pumped into the body during the surgery process, including clotting, anti-clotting, to make sure the blood's flowing. So that they mess with your clotting factors, terribly so. They don't allot for your individual nature, the way you eat. I remember when I got my wisdom teeth out, which I wish I never did now. I would never recommend getting them out unless you have a real problem. But I did. I remember they put me under because they did all at once. And the anesthetic, one of the things I read, and at the time I was raw vegan, I was very clean. You don't need a lot of drug. The drug is pretty heavy. So you don't use a lot of drug. And so I was under forever. And they were like, they just put me off into the side and, I just laid and slept for like hours. And I told them, I said, look, I'm very clean. I do not need as much anesthetic as you normally do. They just did body weight and that's it. They don't consider the metabolic space of you, right? So who knows what happened in her case, being someone who does mantra and chanting all the time and this sort of thing. And you don't know. So they did that to her. And their mistake was assuming that they are innocent and that they help. That's why she died. She assumed that they are up on the up and up, and that you need surgery as well. I would have declined surgery. Maybe if you want a scan to find out, fine, go in, take your DMSO, Go and get a scan, leave. Don't let them inject you with anything. Get the diagnosis from the scan and take it from there. You know, that's where we're headed. That's how I feel. We're going to need our own emergency systems and services that are from the original world, not this demented, everything's got to be cut open and put metal in and just stupid stuff. Now you got a metal plate in your foot for the rest of your life. Really? Again, it's this arrogance that they think the body can't fix that. Yes, it can. Absolutely. I might have said this story before. I met a man who came here and he wanted to see my rocket stove. He was really interested. He showed me his hand. He said, I believe in miracles. I said, tell me. And he said, I cut my finger off. I think it was past this joint in a saw, and it grew back. He grew it back. And one of the things he used was DMSO, by the way. And he said, and the nail and everything grew right back. So we have regenerative properties, and they make us not know that. They make sure we don't understand that we have that power. The powers we have are beyond what I think most people can really get their head around, honestly. I would really just caution yourself. Just think, have a contingency plan. What would happen if you broke a thing or your child does? Go to the hospital, fine, get your scans, fine, administer DMSO, prevent blood clots, which if she had taken DMSO before the surgery, she probably would have been fine and not even thrown the clot in the first place. But I see all these people talking about our anti-establishment people, and then they break their leg and they go for surgery. I'm like, what are you doing? Why would you get, pins put in your body? The body's always going to see that as an inflammatory problem. It's always going to cause mucus to the system in the area. You're always going to have chronic pain in the area. It's not. They make it sound like they've really figured it all out and it's so awesome, and it's really not. So I just wanted to mention that because I'm just not, I don't know. I'm not, I see that and I get upset. So there's all these, condolences and, why did this happen? And I can't get my head around why she died and all this stuff. My instinct is to say, but she made a fatal error. She made a fatal error. And I see this in the spiritual community all the time. And this was one of my beefs. I'll get off my soapbox soon, but it was one of my beefs when I was in naturopathic college. I see or even in university, I see these environmental types, they seem to care about the earth and animals and all this stuff, right? But then they go and they poison themselves with pharma drugs, and they beg to the establishment when they're in a pickle. So they're anti-establishment, but they're actually not, because they support the whole thing with their actions, and in the spirit and in the spiritual aspect, the environmental aspect, the holistic aspects, they haven't all come together. And that's what needs to happen. You need to put the puzzle together. Then you've got it. Then now you're working from the holism, and you understand those systems are dysfunctional. So if she was spiritually in tune with herself, she would never have put herself in that situation, you see. As much as I know this is what people don't want to hear, and I would get backlash for saying it. So I don't say anything because there's no point, right? They're mourning anyway. But I'm saying she made a mistake. That's why. That's what happened. That's why she's dead. You want to know what you're asking her, why she died? Because she wasn't listening properly. As spiritual as she was, she didn't hear her inner direction. She wasn't listening to her inner direction. Or perhaps she was listening to her inner direction and she wanted to leave this place and she wanted to die. I can't say otherwise, but if she wanted to live and she had legacy that she still was building, then her internal direction, if she was clear in herself, would have got big red flags to go and have the surgery. That would have been a no inside of her body. She would have known not to do that. So she made a mistake. That's why she died. And she gave her life over to butchers and maniacs, thinking that and trusting them. And many do. And look at the world today. They're all doing it. They're literally handing over their souls to maniacs. Yeah. And just because you wax spiritual, okay, that doesn't mean you're immune to it. Because what does that mean? What is spiritual? What does that actually give you or get you? Or what is it about? It's your intuition comes online and you are listening to yourself. You're listening inside all the time. So you know what move to make or not. You know what to do next. You're being directed by your proper divine guidance, not by your ego, not by lower needs, wants, or usages. See? So that's why she died. She made a mistake, a big mistake. So the moral of the story is, if you need the scans to find out what happened, that's valid. I can get behind that. We should have access to those things, I think, freely. Yeah. And then get the hell out. Get the hell out and deal with your work with it. See, trust your body. Set the things up. Go get, first thing, any injury is go get plantain out there. Go get plants on you. Go bruise those plants and you put them on your body right away. You take arnica, homeopathic, to stop any internal bleeding right away. These are basic things. So when I start teaching my courses on Yummy.Doctor, this is the stuff I'm going to get down to, the nitty gritty of. Here's your merge medicine, step by step. Here's what you do for these things. And here's how you triage. And then, of course, you have to make decisions for your family, which are going to make sense for you. And I'm not going to know all of those things, but I'm going to try to help you make those decisions so that you can feel that, because I know there's going to be some people that, yeah, their internal guidance is to go to the hospital. I get that. That's totally legit. You know, depending on you and depending on your interactions, those might be good interactions. Not every doctor is a monster, right? Not every nurse is a brainwashed idiot. I've met lots of cool nurses, awesome nurses that are awake. They know. And that might be the nurse you meet. So, but my main point is you've got to have that knowledge, and then you've got to align yourself appropriately so you don't walk into danger. And it goes across the board. Okay. So let me just do a couple of quick, I got to start making, I've got a phone call. Oh yes, I have an important phone call. So I'll have to cut it short. I will try to address your queries later when I come back to comments. You guys are awesome. I'm here for you. Let's be here for each other, support each other. Got a lot of work to do, as I've said. Dump the fear. Know that we're purging, we're healing, we're growing, we're changing. Everything that we wanted is before us, you know, and try to not get sucked into the sensationalism and the drama of the day because they feed on you. Don't be their fuel. We don't need to fuel the fire of that insanity. Okay? All right. We'll talk to you soon. Lots of love for now. ADV out.